guys, welcome to today's video. Today is the first of 3 blush declutter videos. We're going to be looking at my nude blushes in one video, my warm tone blushes in another, and my cool tone blushes in a third. And then we're going to quickly follow up those videos with my bronzer and highlighter collections. Now, this is all focused on my powder face products, and before we get into all of these, I just wanted to make a couple quick comments so you guys can understand my perspective as I'm thinking about what do I want to keep and what do I want to declutter. I have a growing preference for cream and liquid products. That's kind of been growing stronger and stronger over the past year. As a result, I ended up condensing my makeup storage for powder, blush, bronzer, and highlight to one drawer. Historically, I've had a top drawer that has had all of my powder, blush, and then a secondary drawer right below that has my highlighter and bronzer. That top drawer is now currently holding all of my face palettes. What I've done is moved all of my cream and liquid products to the drawer that used to hold some cream and liquids along with mostly my face palettes. So I've kind of switched those two drawers here. What that means is that for my powder face products, I need to fit all my blush, bronzer, and highlight that I want to keep into this single drawer because I am not going to grow my makeup storage in any way, shape, or form. So I need to be thinking about what powder face products I truly love, truly want to keep. I also wanted to call it that when I am using a powder product, I am definitely preferring a satin or a glowy formula lately. I am less and less drawn to matte blushes and matte bronzers than I have been historically. And so that is going to play into what I'm interested in keeping versus decluttering. I also want to use this declutter to really seriously look at any non-cruelty-free products I still have in my collection. If I truly still love them, I'm still going to hang on to them, assuming that they haven't gone off. But if I'm kind of apathetic about them or I'm not reaching for them a ton anymore, I'm going to go ahead and get those out of my collection. All right, so that was a much longer intro than typical for my videos. Let's go ahead and get into my cool toned blush today. All right, so I went through and kind of looked at my cool tone blushes, and these are really pinks, mauves, purples, and what I've kind of divided up into is sort of this more purpley toned blush category. I have a very cool toned pink category. I have a very more warm toned pink category, and then I've got a section for mauve. So right now we're looking at more of that sort of purpley, lilac-y colored blush. One that I know I'm going to go ahead and pass on right away is this one from the Balm. I was really excited about this. This was the Balmfire. This is in the shade Beach Goer. It had 2 sides to it. So it has one side that has sort of a warmer pink blush, and then it has another side that has sort of this purpley blush. I've kept it in the purpley blush section because that is the shade out of this palette that I actually liked. The shade that was on the other side had an absolute ton of like gold glitter in here, and so I did not care for how glittery and kind of chalky weird this formula ended up being on the other side. Like it just did not, let's see that there, just kind of flopped every which way. So I did not care for that pink side at all. I really did prefer the more purpley side, but I think as I compare that to this, which is an old Colourpop palette, it's their highlighting, they call it a highlighting cheek duo. I used both of these as blushes. I much prefer the color and a little bit more of that translucency of the purple shade that's in the Colourpop one. And then it does have this sort of a vibrant, sort of blue-based formula as well. So I feel like this one is one I've never really cared for. It's not that old. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on. For the time being, I think I wanna keep this one from Colourpop. And then we're down to these 2 here. So this is a Becca mineral blush in the shade Gypsy. This is a discontinued shade, but it's like a sort of a pinky lavender color that has a really nice sort of soft pearly gold champagne shift to it. It's a really, really pretty color, and I like it a lot with more cool tone looks. Gypsy is I don't know, it's a beautiful shade, and I don't feel like it's a shade you see a lot on the market. This is a matte blush from City Color. City Color Cosmetics is not cruelty free. This is a color that I have enjoyed historically. This is the shade Blackberry. It is a matte shade. but I feel like it's got a very similar undertone to the, especially as I sheer it out, to the Becca one. And I feel like if I'm going to keep one of the two of these, I prefer the Becca one, both for its glow factor as well as just kind of the undertone being a little bit lighter. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and pass this one on, and I'm going to hang on to the Becca one. These are my more blue-based pinks, so they've got a little bit more of that bluish purpley undertone to them. I am going to swatch though this shade, although this looks a lot more purple than the ones that are down there, as it is sheared out, it actually ends up looking a little bit more like, I don't know, a little bit more like a blue-based pink and a little bit less purple. And I kind of feel like I want to swatch it next to this Urban Decay Afterglow blush. They don't make these anymore. This is the shade Obsessed. I have to be honest, I have not reached for this matte blush a ton, and I have a sinking suspicion, yeah, those colors are incredibly similar together. So since I want to keep the Colourpop one, I feel like I can pass this Urban Decay one on. The other matte formula I have is this Butter Blush from Physicians Formula in Rosy Pink. This is matte, but it definitely has a bit of a satiny type texture to it. But once again, I'm not reaching for this type of color a ton, and I feel like they're all looking kind of similar on my arm. This is from Clinique. This is a cheek pop from Jonathan Adler. They did this, I think, 2 summers ago. This is the shade Plum Pop, which I believe is part of their permanent collection. I do really like this formula, but it is a very intense fuchsia, and it's one of those ones that I have to be very careful or I can go too far with it. And once again, I feel like I'm looking very, very similar here. The last one I have in this section is from Jouer. This is one of their blush duos in the shade Coquette. This is a matte formula, I believe, on both sides. Let's swatch both of these. But it's a very blendable, easy to work with matte formula in my opinion. Yeah, and see, this is giving me very similar vibes to kind of all of these shades here. So I feel like if I keep these two blush duos along with this Becca blush here, I've got sort of this cool tone spectrum more than covered, and I can go ahead and pass on this Clinique pop. I think my mom might like this one. And then I can also pass along this Physicians Formula one. Still kind of getting past my initial annoyance with Physicians Formula for selling in China and no longer being cruelty free. So I will keep Physicians Formula if I truly, truly am like ecstatic for the color or formula, but yeah, I'm gonna pass these two on. All right, so these are all blushes that lean a little bit more mauve-y toned. Some of these are still kind of neutral, so I may need to come back and swatch some of the ones over here against some of the more neutral blushes that I'm keeping in a different video, and then also against some of the more pinky tone shades that I have in my last section here, which is sort of warm pinks, because I feel like we start to get dangerously close to similar territory when you start talking about warm pinks. And then looking at these, they're just kind of tweener shades, but I had, before I'd kind of divided these up into sections, I had swatched some of these against some of my warmer pinks, and I definitely felt like they were leaning a bit more mauve. Let's talk about the ones on this side first, which are definitely more mauve leaning. This is from Ciate. This is their shade Into Deep. I absolutely loved this formula as well as the shade. I just feel like I haven't seen a lot of like mauve blushes with this sort of undertone before. Like I feel like this is one of the more unique blush shades in retail in general, because it pulls a little bit more mauve, but it also has that really glowy, pretty peach swirl going through it. So I definitely know I'm going to hang on to that. This is another Urban Decay blush. It's a little older. This is the shade Rapture. This was part of my last month's Shop My Stash. And although the shade is really dark, when it's sheared out, it really does look really pretty and muted and plummy. I'm double checking some of these older shades just to see if I feel like it's gotten crumbly or smells weird, etc. But I do really like that, and so I'm tempted to keep both of these shades. And then these two here are matte. So this is a Lorac Buildable Matte Shadow in the shade Chroma. This is historically a shade that I used to wear quite a bit, but I feel like I've not been reaching for a ton. And then this is from Flower. This is one of her Flower Pots powder blush in shade Sweet Pea. Also matte, but a little bit more on the neutral matte side. I'm just building up these swatches so I can really see the undertone here. That's really pretty. It definitely reminds me of the Ciate shade, but matte. Those are maybes. And then let's go ahead and finish swatching these. This is newer to my collection. This is from Essence. This is the Essence The Blush in the shade Befitting. And I did really enjoy this shade quite a bit. It is matte, but it's very smoothing, and it almost, I hesitate to call it a true satin, but it has a creaminess to it because of some of the ingredients and the smoothness to it that doesn't make it look sort of like chalky on the cheeks. And then this is Catrice Strobing Blush. I wish they still made these. I absolutely love these. This is in Mrs. Rosalie Berry. And then finally, this is from Milani. This is one of their newer shades in their baked powder blush. This is Petal Primavera number 14, and this is one that's going to start leaning a little warmer and more neutral, and I'm going to need to, like I said, check some of these down here against things that I've put in my neutral blush collection, because they do start to look a little different from the other things in my collection. I want to keep these first two shades. So the Ciate shade and the Urban Decay shade, I want to hang on to those. I'm going to pass on this next shade, Lorac. I don't feel like I am reaching for this a ton, and it's matte formula. I am also going to pass on this Flower blush. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it, but it's very similar undertone to the new Essence blush, the blush shade that I just got, and I actually like the formula on that one better. And I start to feel like all these are looking very similar in these last three. So this one here is matte from the blush. I do want to keep it. I feel like I need to choose between these two. My gut instinct is to keep the Catrice one because the packaging is smaller and it's going to take up less space in my drawer. But in terms of dupes, if I'm going to ever use this as a dupe shade for something more expensive, this I can't recommend to you guys. This I could. So I think I'm going to go ahead and pass on the Catrice one, and we'll hang on to the Milani one. So these are all sort of warm pink blushes. I put them here as opposed to with my warm blushes just because I feel like they've got enough of a pinky undertone that people would reach for these for cool tone sort of situations versus warm. But like I said, there's definitely some that also lean a little bit more neutral, and I'm going to want to compare when we do our neutral blushes as well. I think a couple decisions that I can make right out of the gate to just kind of level the playing field a bit is these two Maybelline Fit Me blushes. I'm comfortable letting these go. So this one was part of my project pan for last year, and I came to realize that I just didn't care for it. It's a shade Nude, but it actually has a pretty intense pink pearl pigment going in it that makes this incredibly, I don't know, I didn't care for it on my cheek. I felt like the pink pearl was just too intense. And then this Fit Me shade in Rose Pink is matte, and I just, like I said, haven't been reaching for matte, and if I'm gonna keep any matte blushes in my collection, it's definitely going to be ones that are from cruelty-free brands. So those can go. I'm gonna go ahead and pull out the glowy blushes, and we will just look at the matte ones first. All right, so right out of the gate, I can tell you I will probably declutter this Lorac blush. I did enjoy these buildable matte blushes from Lorac. I love the packaging, but Lorac is not cruelty-free. This is the shade Spectre, and I definitely feel like we're gonna see the shade replicated very quickly here on my arm, and we are going to be able to dupe this guy. So this I'm gonna set to the side as declutter. The rest of these are all cruelty-free. So this is from Burt's Bees. This is Shy Pink. This one's going to be a little bit more neutral, I think, but still kind of in that warm pink family. This is Makeup Geek Blind Date. which is more of a warm pink. This is an e.l.f. little, I forget what they call these, like little e.l.f., I don't know, $2 blushes. This is bright pink, and this actually has a beautiful texture to it. It's definitely got a little bit more purple than the Makeup Geek one that is a little more warm toned. This is a Bare Minerals Gen Nude blush in the shade Call My Blush. And this also has a super creamy, beautiful formula. Very, very reminiscent of that e.l.f. one. And that one is a little bit more on the nude pink side. So you definitely see I've got a more warm toned one from Makeup Geek, a little more cool toned from e.l.f., and then a little more neutral from Bare Minerals. And then the last matte blush here is Down Boy from Balm. I'm curious to see how this one goes on. I think it's going to be a little more cool toned. Yeah, for sure. So I think out of all of these, I may, for the time being, just keep two. And I think the two that I'm most drawn to, because I've got purpley, more cool tone shades that I've already kept. So I think I can get rid of the Balm shade here. I do really like these Gen Nude Bare Minerals blushes, so I'm going to keep that. This e.l.f. blush here is pretty, but I don't necessarily think I'm going to reach for it a ton. I do like this Makeup Geek shade. I think it's a little bit more warm toned and it's different than what's on my arm, so I think I'm going to hang on to that. And this Burt's Bees blush here, I think I'm going to pass on. Let's talk about glowy and satin products here. One from Laura Geller that I love is one of their Baked Blush and Brighten in the shade Pink Buttercream. I do really love this formula. I think it's really, really pretty. It's a nice satin texture, gives a nice glow to the cheeks, and I really like that color. All right, I just dropped the lighting a smidge, or dropped the settings, so hopefully these colors, I feel like they were getting a little washed out on camera. So there is Pink Buttercream from Laura Geller. I do really, really enjoyed that one. Let's see, let's swatch this. This is Charlotte Tilbury. This is the Chic to Chic Swish and Pop Blusher in Love Glow. I'm just gonna swirl all of these together and see what color we get. It's a soft, glowy pink. That's pretty. This is from Milani. This is one of their Color Harmony blush, is in Pink Play, so it has a lot of different little sections here. Same thing, we'll just swirl those all together. Wow, that's looking very similar to that Charlotte Tilbury shade, isn't it? This is a NARS blush in the shade Free Soul. This was part of a spring collection, I think a couple years ago. It's a very, very light, it's probably the lightest blush I have, and it's super glowy. In fact, you could almost treat this like a highlighter, but it's got enough of a pink undertone that I definitely wore it as a blush, and I do feel like it's unique in my collection. It is a really, really, really pretty shade. I like it a lot. This is a Marc Jacobs, let's see, what do they call these? His Air Kiss blush. This is in Kink and Kisses, so you definitely can kind of, once again, customize the shade. I'm just going to swatch all of them together though, so you can kind of see the color. And like I said, doing heavy swatches here so I can really see the undertone of them. And then final blush is a little one from Colourpop. This is part of their Disney Designer collection. This is Enchanted Mirror, with has belt on the front, sort of a soft satin texture. So I feel like I've got some shades here that are very, very similar to one another. Watch this Pink Buttercream shade down here, because I feel like that is looking very similar to some of the ones down at the end of my arm as well. Yeah, those three are looking very similar to me. All right, so I feel like I need to choose one of these. I don't feel like I need all of them. All right, so of these three, I feel like what I'm going to do is actually pass on the Marc Jacobs one. I think this would make a really nice gift for a friend, and I feel like as I look at the textures and everything on my arm, I actually feel like I might like these two a little bit more. Not to say there's anything wrong with the Marc Jacobs one, but I definitely like the glowiness of Pink Buttercream from Laura Geller, so I'm definitely keeping that. I think for the time being, I'm gonna hang on to the Beauty and the Beast shade. I am gonna hang on to NARS Free Soul just because I feel like it's so different in my collection. And then these two here, Charlotte Tilbury in Love Glow and this Milani Color Harmony in Pink Play, I feel like are super, super similar to one another. So I'm going to keep Charlotte and pass on Milani. All right, so here are the ones that are getting decluttered out of my collection. In total, I am passing on 16 of these cool toned blushes. And then here are the blushes that I am keeping. I am keeping 13. Like I said, as it relates to some of these, I'm going to be going through these a second pass when I get into some of my other collections, just to make sure that I am not keeping super duplicative shades just because of how I happen to divide them up for these videos. And then I am happy to say that I only have in all of my collection now one non-cruelty free product left. Everything else sitting here is cruelty free, which I am super happy about. So that means that in total I have decluttered 16, kept 13, and that means that 55% of my collection has been decluttered. If I kind of keep on this track, I definitely think I will be okay to kind of keep everything in my drawer, because the way I'm thinking about it right now is probably half that drawer is blush, and then 25% bronzer and 25% highlighter. We'll see if that holds true. So that wraps us up for today. I'm going to move to my warm tone blushes next, and then we will tackle my neutral blushes last.